Hello. Welcome back, my true crime junkies. It's been a while. It's been a couple of days. I know I'm a little behind, but welcome back. If you are new to my podcast, welcome. Just make sure that you subscribe, and you can subscribe at any of your favorite platforms. And then I'm also on Instagram and on YouTube. So you're welcome to look me up and subscribe, and hopefully help me out and share more of my videos. Today we have a new episode that goes all the way back to the 1900s. It does take place in France. I really do hope everybody enjoys it. And if you have any case suggestions, you're welcome to direct message me through any other platforms that you're listening to the podcast on, or on Instagram. So today's case is called the Papin Sisters and the Murders That Haunted France. Alrighty, so let's start with the early lives of the Papin sisters. The life of the Papin household wasn't often an admirable one. Their parents, Clemence Dier and Gustave Papin, were in conflict long before the birth of the children. They surrounded by whispers of Clemence. The birth of their first daughter, Amelia, in 1902 brought no celebrations. In 1905, Christina came into the family, much to her parents' disgust. With her mother severely depressed and her father deep in his alcoholism, they were unable to take care of her. So they sent Christine to live with her aunt shortly after her birth. She was later relocated to a Catholic orphanage at the age of 7. And then at the age of 10, her sister Amelia was also sent away to Bon Pasteur Catholic Orphanage. And lastly, Leah was born in 1911, the final child that Clemence and Gustave would have together. In such a tense household, she grew up quiet, nervous, and altogether unintelligent. And with an obedient spirit, Leah was a perfect child. Yet her parents sent her to live with her uncle. The time that the sister did spend with her parents was cluttered with chaotic arguments, attempts of molestation, rape, and other forms of physical and verbal abuse. And eventually their parents divorced, as the mother grew jealous of how much attention Gustave was paying to the girls. Now in 1926, a troubled Christine and Leah scored a dream position as a live-in maid service with Le Mans. Now, who were their wealthy employers? They were Renee and Leonie Lancelin, along with their daughters, Genevieve. Renee, a retired lawyer, purchased a gorgeous 2-story townhome on Leonie's income, and enjoying the Papin sisters extended the luxury of his home to the poor. At first, this arrangement seemed stellar. Although it was a job, their residency with the Lancelins guaranteed a stable household without the threat of being sent to an orphanage or a random relative. They were well fed, clothed, housed, and paid. Additionally, the help that they provided to the Lancelin was top-notch, as they were exceptional workers. So what went wrong in their employment that led to their tragic actions? A number of factors played into this escalation tension in the Lancelin household. For starters, Christine was still deeply traumatized by childhood abuse, causing her to be emotionally unpredictable. And while Leah didn't share the same instability, she was also obedient and listened to her impulsive sister for cues about how to behave. Now let's get into the treatment from the Lancelins. The Lancelins family was ultimately detached from the suffering sisters. While they provided for them physically, they treated them with the same lack of attention as their parents had. In fact, despite being employed by the Lansing family for nearly 7 years, Renee never spoke to either woman. To worsen their relationship, Leonie was cold and withdrawn. In addition to double-checking their dusting habits with white gloves, she only communicated to them through written notes. And after a while, their elitism wore down on the spirits of the Papin sisters, especially Christine. As tensions simmer between a paranoid 27-year-old Christine and introvert 21-year-old Leah and the Lansing ladies, it seemed to be only a matter of time before the Papins were fired or took their anger out on their employers. Their conflict came to a devastating fever pitch on a stormy February evening. On the evening of February 2nd, 1933, Renee and Leonie and Genevieve weren't supposed to be home. Renee was out with a friend, and his wife and daughter set out on an evening shopping trip, planning to retire to Leonie's brother's house. On the other hand, the Papins were busy with chores and errands. One such errand was to retrieve the family busted iron from the local repair shop. And after picking up the machine, the sisters plugged the still faulty iron in, leading to an electrical blowout. And since Leonie and Genevieve planned to be gone through the evening, the sisters saw no need to repair the iron that night. They decided to push off the task until the next morning. So while this would have worked in their favor if the Lansing's woman stayed out, they made the fatal mistakes of coming home early. When Leonie and Genevieve swung by their home on the way to Leonie's brother's, they found their power system in disarray. Rather than being understanding of a simple electrical failure, Leonie started a rage-induced attack on the two Papin sisters on their first floor landing. Unfortunately for Leonie, Christine had more pent-up rage in her pinky than Leonie had in her entire body. And as soon as the attack started, Christine smashed a hard jug over the head of Leonie. Meanwhile, Genevieve attempted to fight for her mother, much to her regret. In response, Christine turned to Genevieve and gouged the poor girl's eyes out. Oh my God. A misguided Leah looked to Christine for direction, who told her to perform the same horrendous act on Leonie. Leah, obedient as ever, tore Leonie's eyes out from her head. Now, defenseless duo, Leonie and Genevieve had no chance against the sisters. Christine and Leah took this opportunity to escalate their vicious crime. After raiding the kitchen, the sisters took turn beating the Lansing woman with a hammer, knives, and kitchenware until they were dead. They stabbed them beyond the point of recognition, cutting up their faces, their chests, their thighs, their butts, and their genitals. After 2 hours of overkill, the attack died down. The Papin sisters retired to their room with the weapons, stripped naked, and curled under the sheets, waiting for Renee to return. And of course, Leonie and Genevieve didn't make their dinner date with Renee, and the worried husband returned home to look for his family. He found his townhouse pitch black, locked, and painfully silent. With police assistance, he was able to break into the home, discovering his murdered wife and daughter. While he initially feared that his two housekeepers had also been slaughtered, he was surprised to find the Papin sisters in perfect health and covered in blood of the Lansing ladies. To his devastation, they took immediate responsibility for the murders of Leonie and Genevieve. Following their arrest, Leah remained rather quiet, frightened, and reserved. Christine's behavior and paranoia and outrage only continued to escalate behind bars. At one point, she attempted to claw out her own eyes. forcing the officer to put her in straitjacket while awaiting her punishment for her crimes. In and beyond the courtroom, discussions of motivation were brought to the table. Some believe that the sisters shared a psychotic disorder that caused them to hear voices, experience severe paranoia, and violently snap on the Lancelings. Considering their family history, this wasn't a weak defense. However, many thinkers felt that the sisters' actions were nothing more than a rebellion against the upper class. They saw their violent actions as backlash for the cold, callous, and detached way the Lancelings treated the duo. Some people even idolized the women, feeling that they had made an example of their least employers. The court were not so forgiving. So at the end of the day, murder was murder. While some felt that they were insane at the time of the crimes, the courts found the Papin sisters competent. And since Christine was seen as the ringleader, she was sentenced to death by the guillotines in the Le Mans public square near the end of 1933. And however, a self-harming meltdown in her holding cell caused the court to reduce her sentence to life in prison. Still, Christine's mental instability only escalated. She ended up refusing food and succumbing to starvation in 1937. On the other hand, Leah was viewed as an accomplice to the spine-tingling crimes, receiving a lesser sentence, 10 years in prison. After 8 years of good behavior, Leah was freed without her sister at her side. She moved back in with her mother, Clemens, and lived quietly under the radar until her passing. While the world may never fully understand what led the Papin sisters to a violent murder of their wealthy employers, the brutality of their crimes will remain infamous in France for the rest of the history. So what do you guys think? Was this insanity from the sisters' side, or they knew what they were doing? They just took vengeance out on the Lanceling family because they were ignoring them, mistreating them, and treating them unfairly, even though they were being fed and they were given a job. But it's a very sad story. Both families suffered. The Papin sisters suffered. The Lancelings lost, their family. So it's a sad case, but it's not too famous. It did happen in France. So I'm going to try and share more of these kind of international cases. Some that may be solved, some that may be cold cases. But I do look forward to sharing these kind of cases because, they're not recently, they're older, and they just sound interesting how some cases get resolved back in those old days. So guys, this was fun. I look forward to posting my next episode very soon. Make sure to subscribe now, and you can also subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Instagram, True Crime Junkies, with a Z at the end. Bye.